Hey everybody, welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland. Tonight we're going to be talking about the great Beatle double album, Desert Island Dilemma. Now a lot of you are probably telling yourselves right now, well wait a minute, what dilemma? The Beatles only put out one double album while they were a band. Ah, but did they? Now, to understand what I'm talking about here tonight, first of all, we got to go back 2 days from the time of this filming. 2 days ago, I put out a poll on 4 Beatle albums. Now, these 4 Beatle albums are pretty much at the very tip top of everybody's list, okay? Both critics and fans alike often vote these albums as either the greatest albums of all time or very high on both rock lists concerning just albums in general and on lists concerning the Beatles themselves. Of course, I'm talking about Revolver, very high on people's list, often as high as number 1, and if it is ever eclipsed, usually it's by this album. Of course, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. But they aren't the cream of the crop by any means, folks. The White Album often it places very high on people's lists. If it suffers at all, it's because it's a double album, as we've already mentioned, and it usually costs a little bit more. It's often easier just to pick up a single album, often putting this album as a, well, I'll catch you later kind of item. And of course, you can't put a list out like this without having Abbey Road. Often in my polls, Abbey Road. Matter of fact, up until these last 2 polls that I've conducted, Abbey Road usually wins out when you compare Beatle albums. Now, to set the stage just a little bit firmer, what we're going to have to do is go ahead and take a look at this first poll that I put out. Yeah, you can find these polls on my community pages. Often they'll wind up, if you're a subscriber, on your home feed before you even get a chance to choose whatever video you want to watch for the day. And the poll that I put out 2 days ago read as following. The following Beatle albums are often cited as the Beatles' best work. Which one would you choose to take with you to live your remaining days on a desert island? Of course, I listed them in order: Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the White Album, aka The Beatles, and Abbey Road. Now I can tell you, any time in the past I've put Abbey Road in a poll, it reigns supreme. But not this time. It did well, but at number 1, with over 34% of you voting, the White Album beat all of these other albums. Abbey Road came in second at 31%, Revolver third at 22%, and surprisingly, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band at the rear with a mere 14% of you voting for that album. Now, we'll get back to the poll in just a minute, but it didn't take me too long to figure out that basically people were taking that whole desert island concept, right? And they knew, hey, on a desert island, I need bang for the buck. So the White Album was very enticing under those conditions. Instead of getting the average 14 songs an album, when you picked the White Album, you got 31 songs. And you got songs in every kind of style imaginable. It was almost a no-brainer. So what I thought I would do is kind of level the playing field for the next part of my poll. So what I did was of course, put the White Album back on the list for my next poll. We've already sung its praises, 31 songs, every kind of song imaginable, all four Beatles right, avant-garde material everywhere, some of the most beautiful songs ever crafted. So in my next poll, I put the White Album, just like I did in my last poll. But this time, when I got to the album Revolver, I then teamed it up. After all, what we need is 2 albums by the Beatles to make up for the 2 LPs on the White Album. So I added Rubber Soul and Revolver. That's right, the Revolving Soul double album. Now, the reason I added these 2 albums together was because George Harrison, for example, once said he always thought that Rubber Soul and Revolver were parts 1 and parts 2. I always felt that long before I heard that interview by him. I always thought Revolver, Rubber Soul, the 2 R albums, the best of the mid-Beatles. So keep that in mind. So far we've got the White Album, and then we have Revolving Soul. Which is your favorite so far? But I've got another choice for you. I got another double album for you. Now, when it comes to Sgt. Pepper, what album could you possibly team this album up with other than, that's right, Magical Mystery Tour? Now think about this, folks. This is about as natural as Rubber Soul and Revolver, if you think about it, only it's a little bit in reverse. First you had Sgt. Pepper's, right? And then you had basically an album of outtakes. Even the stuff off the EP was stuff they were finishing up with as they were recording this album. So to me, that left me with this wonderful new double album, Sgt. Pepper's Magical Mystery Tour. So far we have the White Albums, aka the Beatles, and we have Revolving Soul, and we have Sgt. Pepper's Magical Mystery Tour. But what about Abbey Road? I think you know where I'm coming from with this one, guys. But what other album could you pair Abbey Road up with other than Let It Be? As a matter of fact, a lot of the songs that wound up on Abbey Road were even in the Let It Be movie. They were written while they were doing this album. Now, Let It Be came out after Abbey Road, but it was recorded before. So here's my third contender to go against the White Album. And what shall we call it? How about Let Abbey Road Be? Now, if you guys got better names for these albums, I'd love to see them in the comments. But what do you think about my pairing up of these albums? You know, I could have paired up the Beatles movie albums, Help and Hard Day's Night, but the problem with that is there's an album in between them. All of these pairings were all recorded within a year of each other and very well could have been a double album if the Beatles had just held off and waited till, for example, when they were done with the recordings of Rubber Soul, hold off. I know they would have lost a ton of Christmas sales, and just wait till they had finished the Revolver album, and we could have very well have gotten a double album offering at that point. Same thing with all of these choices. So my current poll reflects exactly that. You know, at the time of this video, we're coming up on almost 3,000 respondents to these last 2 polls. So if you haven't voted on those polls, I suggest get on over there and do so. All right, before I close out this video, I do want to give a couple of shout outs. First of all, to StormCop55. James, thank you. I did find your kind super thanks. Ooh, a real nice super thanks. And to Brendan M. the Kid, who sent me a super thanks in my last video. You guys are putting your cash on the line for this channel. By the way, all that money goes right back into the studio, so I appreciate your kind, generous donations. But I want to thank every single one of you. If you're watching this video, you're supporting this channel. If you give it a thumbs up, you're supporting it further, all right? And for those of you who have joined as a member, or over on my Patreon. I appreciate you guys so very much. You help me make ends meet, and to be frank, you help me continue to make better and better videos. So thank you, and thank you to each and every one of you, and to all 43,100 plus subscribers, all right? Okay, that's the video for tonight. I hope you liked it. If you did, give me a thumbs up, all right? We were talking about that. Helps, increase the video to a wider audience, and the channel grows, and on and on and on and on. All right, but I want to hear from you. What do you think of my idea? I know there have been tons of desert island videos over the years, but I thought I'd have just a little bit more fun and do my version anyway. All right, so as usual, I'm Michael Noland. This is The Bottom Line, but it's the bottom line as I see it. There's always room for a whole other bottom line in the comments, and when you respond, you show everyone that we are the tribe.